Yeah. Good girl. Hey, kia ora. Helen Brahms here, coming live from Sun City in Arizona. Hope you're all having a super fantastic, sparkling, shake it up Saturday. How did you shake up your day? Oh, I want to hear about this. What did you do that was out of the ordinary? What stuff did you try that was new? What did you do today to shake it up a little bit? We had an awesome day. Let's see, what do? We started the day off out of sync, not our normal start to the day. We went and got some Panera bread for breakfast, which was yum. Love their souffles. And then I was going to, what was I going to do? I was going to do, I can't remember what I told you guys I was going to do. I ended up doing genealogy. Who knew? And when I was researching, I was going through some of the, I was researching my own tree at one point. Did some research on a client, needed to take a break, so switched over to doing some research on my tree, and I was looking through past papers. So in New Zealand, we've got papers scanned up on a website there, and you can, do searches and all of that. So I was searching through there, and I came across this person called H.R. Ekins. Now, my maiden name is Ekins, and so I was like, who is H.R. Ekins? And it was talking about him being in some race around the world, and I'm like, huh. And I kept coming across these articles about where he was and his stage and all that stuff. So I went and had a look, and it turned out through some research that his name was Herbert Rosland Ekins. He was born in Minnesota in 1901. And in 1936, there was him and two or three other journalists. Because I just read this not long ago. 2 or 3 other journalists who were challenged to see who could be the fastest to go around the world using commercial airlines. 1936, commercial airlines was the fastest you can get around the world. And it was actually quite, well, hello. Hello, you. How are you? Did you come up to say hi? Yeah? Okay, you can sit quietly there. I won't try and put you on the camera unless you put your feet up on the table and get up there yourself. Okay? Now, who are we talking about? We're talking about Herbert. Herbert. I got to find my little bit of information because I forgot to transfer it to my notes. There it is. Sorry. So he was born in Minnesota in 1901, and he actually became a journalist, and he was a journalist for over 40 years. He was one of 2 or 3. No, hang on, because there were 2 others. There's either 2 or 3 others that he was racing around the world with. And going from flight to flight, it had to be on commercial flights only. He went from New York all the way around the world and back to New York in 18 days, 14 hours, and 46 minutes. And I was like, well, that's pretty impressive. So I actually went and researched his name and everything else, found his obituary. He was in China for a while. He was, for a few years, he was a reporter over there. He passed away at the age of 62. But what was really cool was that I actually found a video on YouTube about it. And it showed clips of it's a 30-second video. It showed clips of his journey. And at the end, he said that one of the things that was a little strange is that he got off the plane in New York and he didn't have another one to get on, because he was literally going from plane to plane to plane, and he had worked out what route he was going to take based on the airline's timetables and things. And there's one picture of him getting into a car. There was somebody traveling with him, I think, got onto the car, and it had United Airlines written on the car, and it drove him to his next plane where he got off out of the car and onto the thing. And he said they literally had it, he had planned, in the articles I read, he had planned his trip around the world and literally only had like seconds when he arrived at the next airport to get on the plane before it departed. So he timed it down to the second. And I thought, that is so cool. What a cool trip that would have been. In 18 days, 14 hours and 56 minutes. That was sort of like, wow, that's really cool. But yeah, so he came in. The others did not arrive for another, he came 6 days later, because they were 24 days and 24 and 25 days. So, but yeah, he literally had his connecting flights timed to the second of when he got off one, got in a car for the airlines. They took him to his next flight. He got on that flight, and and traveled around the world that way. So I thought that was pretty cool. It was a really cool story to come across. And you never know what stories, when you're researching genealogy, you never know what stories you're going to come across. I'm not sure if he's actually part of the Warboy Ekins or the Northumberland Ekins. If he's the Northampton. If he's part of the Northampton Ekins, then there's a maybe not connection, but if he's part of the War Boys, there is a definite connection. So I have to research his tree back a little bit to see if he's part of my actual family tree. So like I said, when you're researching genealogy, you never know what you're going to come across. It's awesome. So I had a great afternoon sitting here researching for clients, researching for myself, and just watching some videos on YouTube. So it's just sort of like a relaxing afternoon, seeing as I'm not going to get a full day to relax tomorrow. So, and I did get some work done today, so that was pretty cool too. If you hear any loud crunching, somebody's eating her food, which is right down here. And then we just got back from a walk, but when we came back from the walk, it's completely dark inside. And as I came up the stairs, I looked and I'm like, what the heck is that glowing? It was my remote control. This pink cover. So this is my Amazon TV Fire Stick remote, the new one, and you can actually purchase covers to fit these things. And I saw a pink one. I thought, well, that'll be easy for me to find amongst the black ones that I have. And it actually controls the TV as well, which is pretty cool, although it doesn't do the input selection, so I still need the TV remote for that. So I got the pink cover for it and I put it on, but the pink cover will glow in the dark. I never noticed. I've only had it like about a week. Not even that, but it was sitting there on the side table over there, and I'm like, what is that glowing? Then I realized it was this remote. So this pink cover, I don't know if I can get it dark enough here now with because you're going to have the light reflecting off the screen and everything, but yeah, it glows in the dark. I was like, that is so cool. And it didn't mention that in the description of the cover that it glows in the dark. So I thought that was really cool. So I have a glow in the dark remote control cover. It's just the little things that make, just the little things make you smile and make you laugh and carry on and everything else. So that's basically been our day. Like I said, go research your family tree. Find, and even if you go, like Ekins I thought was not a very common name. In New Zealand, it's not a common name. There's actually two different branches of Ekins in New Zealand that came from two different areas I believe it was two different areas in England. I think they're the ones in Northampton. I have to go back and check. But Northampton's not that far from War Boys anyway, which is why it's a little shaky on the connection. But yeah, so I've been researching the two different families in New Zealand to see if there is a connection between them. And I found, I'll tell you, going through old newspapers when you're looking for a name like Ekins is very interesting. And I was going through the New Zealand papers, and I came across a Joseph Ekins who was it was in the 1930s, like 1931. It was early 1930s. And he'd been flying his plane had taken off from Melbourne, Australia, and was going just between two places in Australia, from Melbourne to wherever he was going, within the same territory. So he was in with Victoria. And his plane went missing. And so there's all these newspaper articles that they're searching for him. No, nothing's been found or anything. His name was Joseph. And I thought, we don't have any Josephs in our family tree that I know of. And so he's going to be the next person I go and research, because like I said, it was beginning of 1930s and his plane went missing, and it was found a week later in the mountains near Melbourne, and they found his body curled up in the very severe head injury on the back of his head, and his plane had crashed, but he had also taken off in not ideal conditions. And I thought, well, he should have known better, because he was a civil aviation inspector back in the 1930s in Australia. And so I was like, this is really cool. All these cool stories starting to come out. And so go research your family name. And if you come across a really interesting story, then start looking to see, is there a connection between my family tree and this person over here? Or is it actually about one of my ancestors that you know that it is about? It's really, really cool. If you want to know where to start, send me a private message. We can set up a time to get on there and we can help you get started. But it's been an awesome day of discovering, reading very, very interesting stories. And then I was reading these other stories and I'm sort of like, that name looks familiar, and realized it was one of my great uncles. And I was sort of like, I wonder what my parents can tell me about this. if they could tell me about it. So I'm going to have to go take a couple of articles and send them to my parents going, is this particular uncle, and what's the story behind this one? So you come up with some really good stories and some that make you go, wonder what the story is behind that story, because that wasn't a very favorable story, that one. So yeah, it's kind of cool. And so yeah, it's interesting just discovering things. And I was talking with a friend today, and I was talking about this guy that that did this thing around the world. And then what was interesting is that his nickname was Bud, B-U-D. So he was known as Bud. And there is another Bud Ekins in the family, which is a distant cousin of mine, who was a stuntman in Hollywood. And he was born in 1930s. He was born in the 1930s, actually in 1930. And he passed away in 2007. And he was actually Steve McQueen's stunt double from The Great Escape. So if you've probably heard, if you've been on this regularly, you've heard this story before, but he is the guy in the big motorcycle chase scene. So Steve McQueen, they wouldn't let him do the final motorcycle ride. So Bud Ekins stepped in and it was a stunt double for Steve McQueen. And Steve McQueen was actually in a German uniform behind them in the pack chasing on the motorcycles. So that was an interesting little trivial tidbit. But when Steve McQueen passed away, he bequeathed his motorcycle collection to Bud Ekins. And Bud Ekins had this motorcycle repair / museum store, motorcycle store in LA. And on his website, it says, come on down, he loves to sit and talk with people. And so when I first found that, I thought, well, the next time we go to LA, I'm going to go and visit. And, I'll call ahead of time, of course, and see if I can come and visit and use the genealogy angle to get in. And there will be lots of he loves to talk about stories and everything else. So we planned our next trip to LA, and I said, let's go see, what was the address for Bud Ekins, the phone number, let's go give him a call. So I go and do the little Google search engine thing. I don't think Google was around at the time. Go and Google it and everything else to find out he passed away a few months beforehand. I was like, damn it. Missed opportunity. So look for those opportunities if you can. And so we actually have, with the last name Ekins, there's actually two Bud Ekins that I know of that's their nickname, not their full names. So it's kind of interesting what you can find out. And the stories. I love the stories. And in the newspapers, I found my great aunt's engagement announcement. I found another great aunt's marriage announcement. I found the birth announcement for my grandfather and his twin sister. So it was kind of interesting going through, and because I put a year span in there. It was kind of interesting going through some of the newspaper articles. And all I do is I just open up the search engine, tell it I don't want commercials, and I just want, although it did put ads in for my great-grandfather, who was a gunsmith, a very well-known fishing rod maker and repairer. He also repaired golf clubs. He remade golf balls. He was a gunsmith by trade. What else did he do? There was a whole, and one of these things, there was a whole list of, he was a safe cracker and locksmith, safe cracker and a locksmith. This is just my great grandfather. He was a captain in World War I and was in charge of Fort Balance in Wellington, and that overlooked the entrance to the harbour. So very, very talented man. And I could see where the skills had been passed down through the generations. But yeah, he was a gunsmith, a fishing rod maker and repairer, repaired golf clubs, didn't make them, he only repaired them, remade golf balls, whatever that means, and he was a locksmith and a safecracker. I was like, just in his one little store at 12 Featherston Street in Wellington. That was the address that came up on every single one of them. And so I was like, man, there was a lot of knowledge in that head, a lot of crafty, creative stuff in that head. So, and that's in my gene pool. So go search old newspapers and search your last name and family names in newspapers and see what comes up. It's always interesting. They may or may not be related to you, but it's always interesting to see what comes up, what stories you can find, and then you want to go, when you find that first story, you go, well, that's really interesting. Now I want to learn more about this person. and you go on and you start researching that person and learning more about them and learning their ancestry and that sort of thing too. So that's part of the fun of genealogy. And the cool part is all these stories are true. So anyway, I'm out of here. Go have a super fantastic sparkling rest of your Shake It Up Saturday. I'm going to go, I had really good steak last night. They call it breakfast steak, which is thin cut sirloin. I think it was sirloin. I think it's sirloin. Thin cut sirloin. They call it breakfast steak because it cooks in like in a minute or two. And I put it on the grill for 2 minutes and made up an open steak sandwich. So that was really, really yummy. I had some garlic butter on there. I had some cheese on there. I had the steak on that, and it was really, really good. And Zeffie was like sitting there with her paw on the seat next to me, not sitting up on the seat next to me, just with her paw there as I say, "Can I have some?" Yeah, she got some cheese. But anyway, go have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow morning for Serenity Sunday. Hei konera.